Let me ask you something. What if the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you want is the story you keep telling yourself, not your job, not your past, not your trauma, not even your talent? Just the wiring in your mind. See, we don't see life as it is. We see it as we are. And if your mind has been trained to expect disappointment, fear, rejection, then even blessing will look like a threat. Even opportunity will feel like danger. Even love will feel like a lie. That's not fate, that's programming, and it can be rewritten. Here's how: 6 keys, 6 shifts. And if you're brave enough to lean in, really lean in, you won't recognize yourself by the end of this. We live in a world where stories shape our reality, but here's the truth. Most of the stories we tell ourselves are not truths at all. They're distortions, beliefs that have been ingrained in our minds over time. From the moment we are born, we begin to collect information, to absorb experiences, and to internalize what others say about us, about the world, about what's possible and impossible. These pieces of information, often contradictory, shape our world view. But here's the problem: we rarely question them. We rarely pause to ask ourselves, is this the truth? Or is this a belief I've adopted without ever challenging it? So much of our mental and emotional lives are controlled by these beliefs that we've come to accept as truth. Maybe someone once told you you're not good enough, or maybe you learned through experience that failure means you're not capable. Whatever the source, you internalized it and it became your truth. But the reality is, these aren't universal truths. They are simply interpretations, conclusions drawn from specific events or perspectives that may no longer serve you. These beliefs, whether about your worth, your abilities, or the world around you, are not inherent truths. They're stories. And stories can be rewritten. Start with this. Who told you that story? Think about the people who influenced your early beliefs. Parents, teachers, peers, and even the media. How many of those voices were rooted in love, wisdom, or healthy guidance? How many of those voices were motivated by their own fears, insecurities, or projections? We are often handed beliefs by others, but that doesn't mean they belong to us. Who told you that you weren't good enough? Who told you that you couldn't succeed? Most of the time, the beliefs that haunt us are not even ours. They were simply passed down, often unconsciously, from others who were just as lost as we were. When you begin to question the beliefs that shape your identity, you open up the possibility of freedom. Ask yourself, why do I believe what I believe? Think about the moments in your life where you felt fear or doubt. In those moments, was the fear based on something real and concrete, or was it based on an assumption, a narrative you've been telling yourself for years? Fear and doubt often arise when we mistake assumptions for facts. The story we've been telling ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of is based on perceptions, not on reality. And when we start to challenge those perceptions, we begin to see a different picture of ourselves, a picture that's far more powerful and expansive than we ever imagined. Another crucial question is, how does this belief serve me? Is it protecting me, or is it keeping me small? Often, the beliefs we cling to are designed to keep us safe, to protect us from the discomfort of failure, rejection, or disappointment. But the truth is, safety can be the greatest form of self-sabotage. The need to stay safe can prevent us from pursuing the very things that would bring us joy, success, and fulfillment. The comfort zone we cling to is a prison of our own making, and questioning the beliefs that keep us there is the first step toward breaking free. Ask yourself, what is this belief costing me? What am I sacrificing by holding on to this old narrative? Sometimes it's helpful to ask yourself, what would happen if I let go of this belief? What would happen if you stopped believing you weren't good enough, or that success was out of reach for you? The fear of losing an old belief can feel overwhelming because, even if it's a negative belief, it's still familiar. It feels safe, even though it might be holding you back. But imagine what would open up if you were to release that belief. Imagine how differently you would approach life, how differently you would interact with opportunities and challenges. By questioning everything you call truth, you're not only breaking free from the past, you're creating space for something new. Something that aligns more with who you are today, not who you were yesterday. Here's the most powerful part. When you question everything you call truth, you stop living life from a place of reaction. You stop reacting to life based on the beliefs you've held onto for years, and instead, you start to respond to life from a place of awareness, of clarity. This shift from reaction to response is the foundation of personal transformation. When you can see that your beliefs are not truths, but just stories, you begin to realize that you have the power to write your own story. You can choose to believe something different, something empowering. You can choose to tell yourself that you are worthy of success, that failure is a learning opportunity, and that you have everything you need to create the life you desire. When we stop blindly accepting the beliefs we've been taught, we begin to see the world through a new lens. And this new perspective isn't just about changing what we believe. It's about freeing ourselves from the constraints of our old thinking patterns. It's about stepping into our personal power and recognizing that we are not defined by the limiting beliefs of our past. We are defined by the choices we make in the present. And the first choice, the most important choice, is to question everything you call truth and to decide whether it still serves the life you want to create. Comfort is one of the most seductive traps we fall into. We're taught from a young age to seek comfort, to find stability, to create lives that feel predictable and secure. But here's the hard truth: comfort is a prison. It's a carefully constructed illusion that keeps us stuck in a loop of mediocrity. The brain, in all its brilliance, is wired for efficiency, and its primary job is to minimize risk. But in doing so, it can easily convince us that staying in our comfort zone, no matter how unfulfilling or limiting it may be, is the safest and best option. The reality, though, is that comfort doesn't help us grow. It keeps us from experiencing the very things that could transform our lives. When we worship comfort, we start avoiding discomfort at all costs. We avoid the risk of failure, the possibility of rejection, the fear of the unknown. But here's the thing: growth doesn't happen in the absence of discomfort. It happens because of discomfort. Think about the moments in your life when you felt the most growth, the most expansion. I bet those moments weren't easy. I bet they didn't feel comfortable. You didn't grow when everything was smooth sailing. You grew when you stepped into the unknown, when you took a risk, when you chose to be brave in the face of uncertainty. That's where the magic lies. That's where your true potential resides. Comfort gives you the illusion of control, but it's not control, it's stagnation. The more we avoid discomfort, the more we limit our ability to experience life in its fullness. Comfort is like a cushion, a soft barrier that keeps you from the sharp edges of reality. But those sharp edges are where you learn resilience. They are where you build strength. They are where you learn who you truly are, not when things are easy, but when things are difficult, when your back is against the wall, when you have no choice but to rise. The human spirit wasn't designed to stay comfortable for long. We're designed to evolve, to expand, to push the boundaries of what we know, what we think we can do. But if you're constantly seeking comfort, you're resisting the very essence of what it means to be human. You're resisting the challenges that force you to grow, the experiences that transform you, the discomfort that stretches you beyond your limits. Comfort tells you that you've reached your maximum, but discomfort, on the other hand, whispers, there's more, there's so much more for you. And it's up to you to choose whether you're going to stay in the comfort zone or whether you're going to step out and claim that potential. Think about the most successful, fulfilled people in the world. Those who have created lasting change, those who have left a legacy. Were they people who avoided discomfort? Were they people who never took risks? Of course not. The greats in any field, business, art, science, leadership, are people who have chosen discomfort over comfort time and time again. They have chosen to step into the unknown, to face failure head on, to be vulnerable, and to put themselves in situations that made them uncomfortable because they knew that discomfort was the crucible where greatness was forged. They understood that without challenge there can be no change. Comfort is often linked to fear. Fear of what could happen if you step outside of your current reality. What if I fail? What if I look stupid? What if people don't accept me? These are the questions that the mind throws at us when we approach the edge of our comfort zone. But here's the key: those fears are not the truth. They're simply stories that the mind tells to keep us safe, to keep us from moving forward. But if you want to achieve something extraordinary, you have to break through those stories. You have to embrace discomfort as a part of the process. Only when you're willing to step through the fear and into the unknown can you unlock your fullest potential. The truth is, the more you push through your fear, the less power it holds over you. The more you step outside of your comfort zone, the more you realize it was never as scary as your mind made it out to be. There's something profoundly liberating about choosing discomfort. When you stop worshiping comfort, you reclaim your power. You stop being a passive observer in your life and become an active participant in creating it. You stop waiting for things to happen to you and start making things happen. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But that's where growth lies. And if you don't challenge yourself to go beyond what's easy, what's safe, what's predictable, then you'll be left living a life of what-ifs. You'll look back and wonder what could have been, what you could have accomplished, what you could have experienced if only you had dared to move beyond the comfort zone. The discomfort you feel when you step outside of your comfort zone is a signal, a sign that you're on the right path. It's telling you that you're growing, that you're expanding, that you're becoming the person you're meant to be. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you practice stepping into discomfort, the easier it gets. It becomes a muscle you strengthen every time you push past your fear, every time you take action despite the uncertainty. The discomfort doesn't disappear, it transforms into confidence, into courage, into strength. So stop worshiping comfort. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to act, because that moment will never come. Instead, choose the discomfort of growth, of change, of becoming the person you were always meant to be. Only then will you realize the limitless potential that lies within you. The way you talk to yourself shapes every part of your life. You've heard the saying, you are your own worst critic. But have you ever stopped to really think about what that means? When you constantly berate yourself, when you focus on your flaws, your mistakes, and your perceived shortcomings, you are reinforcing a negative self-image. Imagine you were to speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself. Would you tear them down with every misstep? Would you constantly remind them of their failures, their insecurities, and their perceived inadequacies? Of course not. And yet, many of us do this to ourselves every single day without realizing it. We are constantly bombarded with external messages about how we should look, how we should act, what we should achieve, and who we should be. The world is quick to tell us where we fall short, but rarely does it remind us of our worth. That's where self-talk becomes a weapon, or a tool. If we are going to survive in this world, we must learn to speak to ourselves with the same kindness, compassion, and encouragement we would offer someone we deeply love. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging our humanity, our imperfections, and our potential without judgment or shame. Think about the way you treat the people you care about most. When they fall, do you kick them while they're down, or do you help them back up? When they make a mistake, do you point out their flaws, or do you remind them of their strength and resilience? Too often, we fail to offer ourselves the same grace we extend to others. We are quick to dismiss our accomplishments, minimize our strengths, and focus only on our failures. But imagine if every time you made a mistake, you spoke to yourself with the same compassion you would offer a friend. Imagine if, instead of condemning yourself, you said, "It's okay, you're still learning, you've got this, you're enough." One of the most damaging aspects of negative self-talk is how it compounds over time. When we consistently reinforce our failures or limitations, we start to believe them. We start to view ourselves through the lens of our mistakes instead of our potential. This self-perpetuating cycle traps us in a loop of self-doubt and insecurity, making it harder to take risks, make decisions, and move forward. The longer we let this cycle continue, the harder it becomes to break free. But just as negative self-talk can trap us, positive self-talk can free us. The more you practice speaking to yourself with kindness, the more you begin to see yourself as capable, strong, and worthy of success. There's something incredibly powerful about the language we use with ourselves. Words are not just sounds, they are energy. They shape how we feel, how we act, and how we view the world. When we speak kindly to ourselves, we begin to create an internal environment of love, acceptance, and possibility. Imagine the energy you would bring into the world if you truly believed you were worthy of love, respect, and success. Imagine the courage you would have to pursue your dreams if you spoke to yourself like someone you believe in. Positive self-talk doesn't mean ignoring the hard truths or avoiding constructive criticism. It means approaching yourself with compassion as you navigate the challenges of life. It's about acknowledging your humanity without allowing your imperfections to define you. For many of us, negative self-talk is deeply ingrained. It's a habit we've developed over years of practice, reinforced by societal pressures and the internalized voices of past criticism. But like any habit, negative self-talk can be broken. The key is awareness. Start paying attention to the language you use with yourself. What are the first thoughts that come up when you face a challenge or make a mistake? Are they supportive or do they tear you down? The moment you become aware of the negative dialogue, you can begin to change it. Replace "I can't do this" with "I am capable of learning this." Instead of thinking "I'm not good enough," try telling yourself "I am enough and I am always growing." Each shift, no matter how small, weakens the grip of negativity and strengthens your belief in yourself. It's important to recognize that speaking to yourself like someone you love isn't just about making you feel good in the moment. It's about building a foundation for long-term success and happiness. The way we speak to ourselves affects our self-esteem, our resilience, and our ability to face challenges with grace. When we treat ourselves with love and respect, we start to make decisions from a place of strength, not fear. We stop settling for less than we deserve, and we start taking steps toward the life we truly want. And here's the thing, you will face setbacks, you will experience failure, but how you speak to yourself in those moments will determine whether you rise or stay down. When you speak to yourself with love, you will find the courage to get back up every single time. Learning to speak to yourself like someone you love isn't a one-time effort, it's a lifelong practice. It's about cultivating a relationship with yourself that's rooted in kindness, compassion, and understanding. Every time you catch yourself slipping into self-criticism, remind yourself that you deserve the same love and care you would give to someone you cherish. Over time, this practice will become second nature, and you'll begin to see the world and yourself through a lens of possibility, strength, and self-worth. And the more you speak to yourself like someone you love, the more others will see that same value and respect in you. We often live our lives thinking that who we are is fixed, as if we were born with a set of traits, tendencies, and limitations that define us forever. But here's the reality. Your identity is not some rigid, permanent structure. It's a fluid, evolving pattern that can be reshaped. When we say, "This is just who I am," we are simply acknowledging a pattern that we've learned to follow, but not a permanent state of being. The idea that we are fixed in our ways is an illusion, one that limits growth, keeps us stuck, and prevents us from experiencing the fullness of our potential. The truth is, who we are is not set in stone. We are constantly evolving, constantly rewriting the story of ourselves. Every choice, every thought, every action contributes to the person we are becoming. This idea can be incredibly liberating, For years, many of us have carried labels like shy, unorganized, not a risk taker, or not a leader. These labels are merely the end result of patterns we've practiced over and over again. But these patterns aren't written in our DNA. They are habits of thought and behavior that we've adopted. And like any habit, they can be broken. Just because you've been a certain way in the past doesn't mean that's who you must be in the future. Every day offers a new opportunity to rewrite the script of who you are. If you don't like the story you've been telling, you have the power to change it. One thought, one action, one decision at a time. The key to unlocking this shift is recognizing that your identity is formed by the patterns you've repeated. These patterns are not intrinsic to your being. They are simply the result of repeated behaviors, beliefs, and emotional responses. If you've told yourself that you're bad at something, that you're always late, or that you're not good enough, those are patterns you've internalized over time. But these patterns don't define you. They simply reflect how you've been thinking and acting up until this point. And because patterns are learned, they can be unlearned. What this means is that you have the power to change the way you respond to the world and reshape the way you see yourself. The idea that identity is fluid also means that our potential is limitless. The patterns we've adopted up until now are not our destiny. In fact, they are simply the starting point, the raw material that we can mold into something new. If you want to become more organized, more confident, or more courageous, the process begins with changing the pattern. It's not about magically transforming into someone you're not. It's about evolving into the best version of who you already are. The capacity for change is already within you, and the power to rewrite your identity starts with small, intentional actions that disrupt old patterns and reinforce new ones. Another important aspect of this is recognizing that change doesn't happen all at once. It's not about flipping a switch and suddenly becoming a different person. It's about shifting the patterns one step at a time. Every time you show up in a way that's different from your usual response, you're creating a new pattern. Maybe that means speaking up when you would have stayed silent before, or taking a risk when you would have played it safe. Each of these moments builds the new identity, brick by brick. Change happens incrementally, and the more you repeat these new behaviors, the more they become part of who you are. Over time, those new patterns will replace the old ones, and you'll find yourself becoming the person you once thought you could never be. The patterns we follow are often deeply connected to our beliefs about ourselves. If you believe you're not capable of succeeding in a certain area, you will act accordingly. You won't take the necessary steps, you'll avoid challenges, and you'll allow fear to guide your decisions. But beliefs, like patterns, are not fixed. They are just stories we've been telling ourselves. And if you want to change the patterns, you must start by changing the beliefs. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself that's holding me back? When you identify those limiting beliefs, you can begin to challenge them and replace them with beliefs that serve your growth. It's only by changing the internal story that we can change the external reality. Identity is often tied to our past experiences, especially those where we failed or struggled. We allow those past moments to dictate how we see ourselves today, but our past does not have to define our future. In fact, our past is simply the collection of experiences that have shaped the current pattern, but it doesn't dictate who we can become. We are not our mistakes. We are not the sum of our failures. These things don't have to dictate our future behavior. We have the ability to take what we've learned, to use our experiences as lessons, and to evolve from them. The key is in recognizing that you are not bound by your past actions or the identity you have constructed over time. You are free to change, to grow, and to redefine who you are based on where you want to go. The final piece of this is understanding that change requires patience and self-compassion. It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see immediate results, but the process of rewiring our identity takes time. You may fall back into old patterns, and that's okay. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you catch yourself slipping back into an old identity, You have an opportunity to gently redirect yourself toward the new one. The more you reinforce the new patterns, the more natural they will become. And the more you allow yourself to be patient with the process, the faster the transformation will take root. Your identity is not fixed, it's a pattern, and you have the power to change it. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty. It's a primal, instinctual reaction that has kept us safe for thousands of years. But fear also has a dark side. It can paralyze us, keep us from taking action, and prevent us from living fully. In many cases, the very things we fear are not as dangerous as our minds make them out to be. Fear often arises from the unknown, from stepping into new territories that challenge our comfort zones. And while fear is a valid emotion, it becomes a problem when we allow it to dictate our actions, when we let it decide whether we move forward or remain stuck. The truth is, fear doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away simply because we wish it would. But we don't have to wait for fear to vanish before we take action. The key is understanding that fear is not an enemy to be defeated. It's a sign that we are on the edge of something new, something meaningful. Fear is the signal that growth is about to happen. It's a reminder that we are stretching beyond our limits, that we are moving into uncharted territory where transformation happens. When we're afraid, it's often because we're about to do something that requires courage. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means taking action despite fear. It means walking through fear, feeling the discomfort, but choosing to act anyway. The more we practice this, the less fear controls us. And in the process, we build resilience, confidence, and strength. It's easy to talk ourselves out of taking action when fear rears its head. We start coming up with all sorts of reasons not to act. It's too risky, it's too hard, I'm not ready. We rationalize our fear, convincing ourselves that we're doing the right thing by waiting. But here's the catch. Waiting often leads to stagnation. The longer we delay, the more fear grows in our minds. The fear that we're avoiding now becomes a bigger monster in the future. If we keep putting off the hard decisions, the uncomfortable steps, the risks, we'll end up living a life filled with what-ifs. The truth is, action is the antidote to fear. The more we act, the more we realize that our fears weren't as significant as we thought. Every step we take diminishes the power that fear holds over us. Taking action is also a powerful tool for building momentum. The hardest part of any journey is the first step, the one that requires the most courage, the most vulnerability. Once we take that initial action, things start to shift. Fear begins to lose its grip. The uncertainty becomes less daunting, and we begin to build confidence. The more we act, the more we prove to ourselves that we are capable. The momentum we create through action is a catalyst for further growth. As we move forward, we begin to gather evidence that we can handle whatever comes our way. That evidence builds belief, and belief fuels further action. The cycle of fear, action, and growth creates a feedback loop that pushes us toward greater achievements. There will be times when our fear is justified. Sometimes fear is a sign that we are facing real danger, that something requires our caution and careful thought. But more often than not, the fear we experience is tied to something intangible, the fear of failure, of rejection, of looking foolish. These fears are rooted in the stories we tell ourselves about what will happen if we take a risk. In reality, failure is not a permanent condition. It's simply a part of the learning process. If we are to grow, to change, to expand, failure is inevitable. And yet, we are taught to fear failure as if it defines us. The truth is, failure doesn't define who we are. It simply marks a moment on our journey, a stepping stone that leads to something greater. Even in the face of fear, we must choose action. It's in the action that we find our true power. Waiting for fear to subside or for the perfect moment will only keep us stagnant. The perfect moment will never come, because life is always changing, always uncertain. But that's exactly why action is so important. When we take action despite fear, we signal to ourselves that we are stronger than our doubts. We remind ourselves that we can handle discomfort, that we can navigate uncertainty, and that we are resilient in the face of challenges. Action is the key to stepping into a life of possibility. It's the key to stepping into the life you were meant to live. The more you choose to take action, even when you're afraid, the more you reinforce the belief that you are capable of creating the life you want. Each action you take is a declaration of your power, your agency, and your willingness to face the unknown. The fear will still be there, but it will no longer have the power to control your decisions. Instead of letting fear paralyze you, you will begin to embrace it as part of the process of growth. And as you continue to take action, your confidence will grow, your momentum will increase, and your capacity to handle fear will expand. You will become the kind of person who chooses courage over comfort, action over hesitation, and growth over stagnation. Taking action, even when you're afraid, is the only way to create meaningful change. If you keep waiting for fear to go away, you'll be waiting forever. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about choosing to move forward, even in the face of discomfort. And each time you act, you'll be one step closer to becoming the person you're meant to be, achieving the goals you've set for yourself, and living a life filled with purpose, growth, and fulfillment. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. In fact, staying within that space of familiarity and ease often prevents us from becoming the best versions of ourselves. We all seek comfort. It's natural. Comfort feels safe. It feels predictable. But when we live in a constant state of comfort, we're not challenging ourselves and we're not stretching our limits. True growth only happens when we step outside of that comfort zone and engage with discomfort. The discomfort of trying something new, the discomfort of failure, and even the discomfort of pushing ourselves beyond what we thought was possible. This discomfort is not an enemy, it's the catalyst that forces us to evolve. It's the friction that turns rough stones into polished gems. Without it, we wouldn't grow, we wouldn't change. So why do we resist discomfort so fiercely? The simple answer is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of the unknown are all powerful forces that keep us from stepping into new, uncomfortable spaces. But these fears are often exaggerated in our minds. The reality is that discomfort is not as dangerous as we believe it to be. In fact, discomfort is often a sign that we are on the right path, that we are moving forward, stretching, and expanding. If you are not feeling some form of discomfort in your life, you are likely not challenging yourself enough. Discomfort is the body's way of saying, you're pushing your limits, and that's exactly where growth happens. It's important to understand that discomfort is not inherently negative. It doesn't mean you are failing or doing something wrong. In fact, discomfort is the sign of progress. Think about the most significant growth periods of your life. Chances are, they were preceded by moments of intense discomfort. Maybe it was starting a new job, entering a new relationship, or pursuing a dream that felt far out of reach. These moments often come with uncertainty, fear, and even pain. But it's in those moments that we build resilience, learn new skills, and redefine our capabilities. Without discomfort, we would never know what we are truly capable of. We would never be forced to grow. We often see discomfort as something to avoid or escape from. But what if we began to reframe it as a signpost for growth? Every time you feel uncomfortable, it's an opportunity to examine what you're learning, where you're growing, and how you're evolving. If we can embrace discomfort as an inevitable part of the growth process, we can approach it with curiosity rather than resistance. Instead of fearing it, we can lean into it and ask ourselves, what is this teaching me? How is this helping me grow? The discomfort you feel today is the stepping stone to the person you will become tomorrow. It's an essential part of the transformation process. One of the most powerful ways to embrace discomfort is to stop avoiding failure. Too often, we see failure as the end of the road, the moment when we've reached our limits. But failure is simply a part of the process. It's a sign that you are testing your boundaries, that you are stepping out of your comfort zone, and that you are trying something new. Failure is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of your willingness to push yourself. Every successful person has failed countless times, but what sets them apart is their ability to embrace failure as part of their growth. They see failure as feedback, not as a personal indictment, and the more they fail, the more they learn, and the more they grow. Another aspect of embracing discomfort is recognizing that the process of growth is rarely linear. It's not a straight path from where you are to where you want to be. Growth comes with setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt. There will be times when you feel like you've taken 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But those moments of discomfort are not signs that you're failing. They are signs that you are engaged in the difficult, messy work of transformation. Every setback, every moment of doubt, is an opportunity to dig deeper, to learn more about yourself, and to develop resilience. Embracing discomfort means understanding that the road to growth is filled with bumps, detours, and moments of uncertainty, and that's okay. Finally, the beauty of embracing discomfort as a catalyst for growth is that it empowers us to live a life of purpose. When we're willing to face discomfort, we're saying yes to the unknown. We're saying yes to the things that scare us, the things that challenge us, and the things that ultimately make us stronger. The discomfort of taking risks, of being vulnerable, and of stepping into unfamiliar territory will always be there. But if we can embrace it, if we can accept it as a necessary part of the process, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that every uncomfortable step we take is one step closer to becoming the person we are meant to be. In the end, it's not the absence of discomfort that leads to growth. It's our willingness to embrace it and use it as fuel for our journey. We often look at our lives as a story that's already been written. We look at the chapters of our past and allow them to define the narrative of our future. We carry the weight of past mistakes, missed opportunities, and broken dreams, and in doing so, we convince ourselves that our story has already been decided. But here's the truth: your story is not over. You are not defined by what has happened to you in the past, and you are not bound by the mistakes you've made. Every day is an opportunity to rewrite your story, to create a new chapter that reflects who you are becoming, not who you once were. The past is simply a collection of moments that no longer have the power to dictate who you can be today. One of the most powerful aspects of being human is our ability to change. We have the ability to choose how we respond to life, how we view ourselves, and what we make of our circumstances. When we stop seeing our past as a chain that binds us and start viewing it as the foundation from which we can rise, we unlock the power to reshape our future. The past may have shaped us, but it does not control us. You can take the lessons from your past, the pain, the failure, the hardship, and use them as fuel for transformation. They do not have to be the end of the story. In fact, they can be the turning point, the moment when you decide that your narrative is still unfolding and you have the power to guide it in the direction you choose. Too often, we fall into the trap of defining ourselves by our past experiences. We think, "This is who I am," when in reality, our past is just a collection of moments that no longer need to dictate our future. We get stuck in old stories, believing that we can't change, that we can't be different, or that it's too late. But that's a lie. Your past doesn't have to define you. It may have influenced who you are today, but it doesn't have to determine who you will be tomorrow. The truth is, you have the power to rewrite your story at any moment. It doesn't matter how old you are, how many times you've failed, or how many obstacles you've faced. Every new moment is a chance to start fresh, to choose a different path, and to tell a new story. This process of rewriting your story begins with changing the way you see yourself. It starts with recognizing that you are not the sum of your past mistakes, your failures, or your setbacks. You are not the person you were yesterday. You are who you choose to be in this moment. The story you tell yourself about who you are shapes your reality. If you tell yourself that you are stuck, that you are a failure, or that you're not worthy of change, that becomes the narrative you live out. But if you begin to tell a different story, one that acknowledges your worth, your resilience, and your capacity for growth, you will begin to see a shift in your life. The way you speak to yourself matters. The story you tell yourself matters, and you have the power to change that story at any time. Rewriting your story also requires that you embrace vulnerability. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that we need to have it all together, that we need to present a perfect image to the world. But the truth is, embracing our imperfections, acknowledging our struggles, and being open about where we've been are essential to rewriting our stories. Vulnerability is the gateway to authenticity. When we allow ourselves to be real about our experiences, we free ourselves from the chains of shame and self-doubt that have held us back. We give ourselves permission to grow, to stumble, and to rise again. And when we embrace vulnerability, we give others permission to do the same. Our stories, when shared honestly, become a source of connection and inspiration. Another crucial element of rewriting your story is taking responsibility for the direction your life is going. It's easy to blame our circumstances, our upbringing, or other people for where we are in life. But if we are truly committed to rewriting our story, we must take ownership of our choices. We must stop waiting for someone else to rescue us or for external circumstances to change before we act. The power to change your life is in your hands. You are the author of your story. Every decision you make, every action you take, contributes to the narrative that you're creating. You are not a passive character in your own life. You are the one holding the pen. When you take responsibility for your story, you reclaim your power. Rewriting your story also requires forgiveness, both for others and for yourself. Many of us carry the weight of unresolved hurts and past mistakes, believing that we can't move forward until we have healed everything. But healing doesn't always mean forgetting or pretending that the past didn't happen. It means choosing to release the grip that the past has on your present. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or condoning what happened. It means freeing yourself from the hold that the past has over you. When you forgive, you make space for new chapters to be written. You make room for the possibility of growth and transformation. And this process of forgiveness is just as important for yourself as it is for others. Letting go of self, blame, regret, and shame is essential to moving forward and embracing the power to rewrite your story. The final piece in rewriting your story is the willingness to take risks and step into the unknown. When we are comfortable in our current circumstances, we may resist change, fearing that the unknown might be worse than what we know. But change is the very thing that will allow us to rewrite our story. We have to be willing to take the leap, to venture into uncharted waters, and to trust that even if we fail, we are still moving toward the person we are meant to be. Taking risks means trusting in your own abilities, trusting that you have the strength and resilience to overcome any challenges that come your way. And the more you take those risks, the more your story transforms. You begin to see that you are not defined by the past, but by the choices you make in the present moment. Your story is always unfolding, and every decision you make adds a new chapter filled with possibility. As you stand at the crossroads of your story, remember this: the narrative is yours to shape. The chapters of your past don't define your future. They're simply the foundation on which you can build something greater. You have the power to rewrite your story at any moment. The choices you make today, the risks you take, and the courage you summon in the face of discomfort will determine the direction of your life. Your journey is not over, it's just beginning. Every step you take toward transformation, every moment you choose growth, adds depth and meaning to the story of who you are becoming. Don't let fear, doubt, or your past hold you back. Embrace the power to rewrite your story and step boldly into the future you deserve. This is your time. This is your life, and the best chapters are yet to come.